Edwards. I have the opportunity to serve as a consultant with the Committee of 70, especially pertaining to councilmatic redistricting, community input sessions. We came up together based on the census data and the shift in population across the city on what areas may see a shift in population. So we designed a plan to do 12 community input sessions across all the councilmatic districts and pertaining into areas where the shift is going to happen. This is our 8th meeting out of 12. Tonight, we have 4 more to go after this. It's been, some good meetings, some okay meetings. We've had we have meetings up to 30 to 40 people, and we had meetings so small to 3 or 2. But today we're going to learn why councilmatic redistricting is important. How does it benefit communities, especially BIPOC and Black communities? But before we actually jump in, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Patrick Christmas.
All right, thank you, Boo. Good evening, everybody. Patrick Christmas here, staffer at the Committee 70. Again, really grateful that everyone's taken a few minutes, more than a few minutes out of their evenings to talk about city council redistricting, especially when we have state maps that just dropped this afternoon. And then of course, congressional redistricting that's happening at the same time. And all the other issues and matters that are taking up everyone's time and attention, serious stuff across the city. So looking forward to a really great discussion about the communities on the ground, specifically in the Northwest. Thank you.
Thank you, Pat. Before we jump into it, can everyone at least take seriously 30 seconds, just 30 seconds to introduce yourself, your first, your last name, where you're from in the Northwest, and if you're representing an organization. I'm going to start with you first, Josh. Josh, are you there? You might be on too.
Yes. Good evening, everybody. My name is Josh Cohen. I am the Chief of Staff for Council Member Curtis Jones, who represents a good portion of the Northwest, including Roxborough, Manayunk, and East Falls. And I'm also a resident of Roxborough.
Thank you. Ms. Charlene?
Charlene Wiltshire, resident of District 10.
Thank you. Mr. Jonathan Hankins?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jonathan Hankins. I'm known more as Mr. Philadelphia. I am a resident of the 5th district, which is Darrell Clark's district, and I'm also the owner of Mr. Philadelphia and Company.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Bellman?
Good evening, everybody. My name is Anthony Bellman. I am a resident of the 9th Councilmatic District with Councilwoman Sherelle Parker. And I'm a part of the 61st Ward. I'm the secretary for our ward. Work for Congressman Boyle, and he's the congressman for our area. And I'm eager to learn about how the redistricting is going to affect our neighborhoods and the resources that gets to our neighborhoods. That's it. That's what I'm really here for. So thank you for Abu for hosting this, and thank you for Pat for hosting this as well.
Thank you. If I say this wrong, don't get mad at me, Ms. Coleman. Ms. Marvita? Did I say that right?
I won't get mad, and you were close. It's Marvetta.
Marvetta, okay, got you.
I am a member of the constituency, and I live in East Falls.
Thank you. Ms. Pryor? Are you there? Hopefully I pronounced your name correctly, Pryor. That's why I can never be a teacher. I guess, Pat, we can go to the PowerPoint now. So they're going to be, this is going to be a very interesting conversation since we have a small group. So, hopefully we're going to make this more engaging. If not, then you're going to think that you're in school somewhere. So hopefully we can engage you guys today. Community input meetings on councilmatic redistricting. Next slide, please. Actually, go back real quick. So if you guys have never seen this before, this is a map of Philadelphia. Philadelphia is broken down into 10 councilmatic districts. Philadelphia has 17 council people. 7 council people are considered at-large members, which they don't have a particular district. And then there's 10 council members who have their own particular district. So this is our map of our beautiful city, the city of Philadelphia. Next slide, please. What are our goals today and what we're going to learn? We're going to learn about councilman redistricting process and why it matters. We're going to examine the current city council map and population counts. And we're going to discuss the council district boundaries in your particular neighborhood in the Northwest. Next slide, please. What is council redistricting, right? Everyone's kind of bombarded right now in this session because we have 3 levels of redistricting happening back: councilmatic, state, and congressional. And all 3 levels are important. There is no one level more important than the other because it ties to, you know, who's being represented in these neighborhoods and these districts. City council must withdraw its 10 districts within 6 months after the U.S. Census released their data. Districts are supposed to have the same amount of people. Based on the data, the census data in 2020, Philadelphia's population is just over 1.6 million. If you divide 1.6 million divided by 10, you would see that it will come out to roughly 160,000 Philadelphians pertaining to each district. The mapping ordinance for, must become law by February 12th. They must have a map drawn by February 12th. New districts will be used in the 2023, 2027, and 2033 in our city elections. Next slide, please. Why redistricting matters. Redistricting can determine who has a voice in the political process, who can run for office, who's elected. You know, pertaining in the Northwest and having some folks here from the Albany area, you know, there's, you know, times that we've lived in our community where we lived in 2 different parts of a legislative district. You know, I'm a committee person of 42nd, Anthony's a committee person of 61st, and we share 5th Street. You know, we are in 2 different councilmatic districts. And it's interesting because, you know, you can actually see the different councilmatic priorities, right? When we talk about what are councilmatic priorities, you know, meaning that, you know, what do the council people who represent that neighborhood care about? So many communities are often served by being kept whole to have a lot of voice with their representatives. Community split can have their representation power diluted. In 2001, we had the most serious, the most serious mandated councilmatic map in the country. If you look at this particular map, you look at councilmatic District 5, and you look at councilmatic District 7. When councilmatic District 7, if you look at, you know, that District 7 representing Huntington Park, district range went all the way into the 10th councilmatic district, which is, you know, a move that literally try to dilute the power of a particular group. And that's what, you know, the importance of these conversations is because, you know, we have to make sure that when we're looking at drawing these maps, that we have to keep communities together. We have to make sure that people's voices are not split and whole. Pat, did you want to jump in to talk about anything about this map at all?
Yeah, well, I think you already hit the nail on the head, and that like the 7th district, which covers like a big swath of East North Philly, including Huntington Park, and is of course like the, you know, predominantly the Latino community that's been there for a very long time, large and diverse Latino community. Yeah, the voters that were picked up out of the Northeast, right, they were predominantly white voters. So those white voters who don't live in North Philly, East North Philly, were effectively pulled into the 7th district, and that's what diluted the power of those folks in the Latino community there. But, you know, something else that we've talked about is like the all the neighborhoods, all the communities that were fractured by that gerrymander, by those crooked boundaries, all the way into the Northeast. Those communities were also harmed along the way. And like Abu just like really stressed, this is not the case every single time, but often to keep a given community whole is going to be helpful for it to give it more voice in the political process. So yeah, really important.
Thank you, Pat. Next slide, please. How should your boundaries change this time, right? We talked about 2001, right? And we saw how gerrymandered that map was. With support from community members, advocacy groups, lobbying, we now look at 2011, right? Where, you know, the 7th district is not, you know, reaching out to the Northeast where it can, you know, try to contain that power, that Latino power and representation. When we look at, you know, even councilmatic District, you know, 5, you know, I'm going to let Pat talk more about councilmatic District 5 because I don't want to kind of say something incorrect data or information.
Yeah, sure. So, yeah, like Abu noted, like this is actually really important. I mean, it's kind of good news and bad news, right? The bad news is that we've had extremely gerrymandered districts in the past, and as Abu noted, those are actually among the most gerrymandered, the most crooked in the entire country at any level. The current map is much better, right? There's a bit of an eye test with these things, and if the districts are fairly compact, you don't see a bunch of features that look like jigsaw puzzle pieces. Things are generally going to be better. And we've had a bunch of these meetings at this point, heard from a bunch of folks from around the city. In many instances, folks are just fine with the boundaries kind of where they are, especially if a given boundary has been in one place for a long time, which is also true, incidentally, of the Northwest, right, between the 4th, the 8th, and the 9th. But among the several features that don't seem quite right, I mean, one of them is on the eastern side of the 5th council district. I guess the right hand side, you can see like there's a little extension of the 5th. The 5th is in gray, and it cuts to the right into the 1st, which is in purple, and just around the bottom of the 7th, which is in yellow. We're looking at the map right in the middle of the screen right now. And that's a feature of the 5th district, which doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense for the communities that are there. I guess we should also stress that when we say community, it means it could be a neighborhood, it could be a business corridor, it could be an ethnic or language group. I mean, communities can be all shapes and sizes. But in that particular case, just that the neighborhoods of Fishtown and Northern Liberties are split right now, and they probably don't have to be. There are other parts of the city where there's a neighborhood or community split, and it may not necessarily be a gerrymander. It just may be that we have to make sure the districts are an equal population, and we just had to move over a certain number of divisions from one district to another, and just happen to split a neighborhood or split a community in a given area. Sometimes that's unavoidable, but like Abu stressed, like the good news is that the reason the map is better is because of all the public engagement that took place in 2011, especially in and around the Latino community. And then there was also a lot of hard work inside City Hall as well. Councilmember Cuneta Sanchez in particular was instrumental in getting that map largely fixed. So big question now is what it's going to look like on the other side. Probably not radically different because the cores of these districts have been the same for many years, but there are going to be some changes, and on the ground those changes will definitely matter to folks. So that is the big question tonight.
Thank you, Pat. So the question is, we're in 2021, right? What should the maps look like? Next slide, please. So this is, the fun part, right? Where are these numbers coming from? Where are people being shifted to? What councilmanic districts are going to see a shift? So as stated before, the targeted population for each councilmanic district has to have about 160,000, right? The smallest district that they can have is about 152,000. The largest is about 168,000, right? So at least we're not stuck in one particular range. We're stuck from 160 to 168,000. So right now, there are 4 councilmanic districts, 2 of them that has more people than needed, and then 2 districts that have less people than needed. So the 1st and the 5th district, they need to lose a couple of thousand people. The 4th and the 8th district needs to gain population, right? So even though we're going to see 4 shifts, we're even going to see 4 councilmanic districts shifting in population, that's going to impact all 10 councilmanic districts, right? So if you have the 1st councilmanic district where you have 171, you have to lose a couple of thousand, and the 5th district, you can't add more people to the 5th district because the 5th district has to lose people, right? The 7th district is, right about can gain. So this is kind of where the math comes in, because whatever you gain in one portion of the district, you're going to have to take back in another portion of the district. So where do we stand, right? And I think the goal right now is to get your input on where you live in, on what those boundaries should be. We've seen in the Logan and Alany community input session where the area that we were focused on 10 years ago, they had a different council person. So it seemed like the last 20 years, each 10 years that they did councilmanic redistricting, they were just shifted into a council person without any updates, any community input sessions, any way to voice their concerns. Because I'll be honest, some people move in other people's councilmanic district based on their councilmanic priorities, right? If they know that a council person is doing what they need to do in their district, that they're taking care of their business corridors, that they're an advocate for small businesses, and they love clean neighborhoods, then and they're holding their schools accountable, then when you're moving around in the neighborhood, you look at stuff like that, right? And when you're moving into a neighborhood, then you get shifted 10 years without any input, then that becomes a concern, and that also becomes a quality of life issue. So I'm going to turn it over to Pat, because we're going to jump into the maps and kind of get, figuring out if we move population from one community to the other, what does that look like? Who gains what? And then we'll talk about next steps and follow up. Pat.
All right, awesome. All right, so while I pull up the map here, and we do know, like, this is a lot of information that's coming at you this evening, and I know a few folks here are very much familiar with the redistricting process already at multiple levels. If you're with us this evening and this is the first time you've even heard of this thing, that's okay. Actually, the vast majority of people have never heard of redistricting before. One of the reasons for that is because we only do it every 10 years. So one of the reasons why this sort of discussion is important is because you always want to know things just a little bit better for the next time they happen, even if it's going to be a number of years down the road. As I pull up the map here, did anyone have any initial questions about the basics in the process that we just went through, whether it's how the city council maps actually get drawn, what the timeline is, what the implications could be for boundaries shifting around? Any initial questions on that? And I'll note again that we're also going to send out this PowerPoint, of course, to everybody afterwards, so you'll have time to kind of digest and take another look. But any initial questions there? Okay. All right, great. Well, I'm gonna pull back up the map of the city, and then we'll have a bit of a conversation here. Share screen. So the tool that I'm bringing up right now, or the platform, is called Dave's Redistricting. There are a couple different tools that folks can use to actually take a very detailed look at the map, the city council map for Philly. And if you're so inclined to start tinkering with it, making some edits, some adjustments, you'd have the option to either start from scratch and draw a completely different city council map. Maybe more of an academic exercise, because the new map is not going to look radically different, but it could be interesting. Or you could start with the current map as is now and start making edits from there. Again, having to keep in mind those population figures that Abu just walked us through a few minutes ago. So this is one tool, something called District Builder is another, and links to both will be in the email and the on 70's website if you want to track those down. Let me just go to full screen here just to make the map as big as we can. And just to get ourselves oriented, right, we can zoom in just for a minute, and the Philadelphia label, right, in the kind of in the middle of the city. There's City Hall, right? If you can see the little cursor, the little hand cursor moving around, right? Broad Street, North Broad going north, South Broad going south, and then Market Street running east to west, right? So this is Center City, and we're, at least this evening, trying to focus predominantly on the Northwest. And I realize, we realize Northwest Philly is a big section of the city. For some of these meetings, we've been really honing in on specific neighborhoods that are split. Some of these meetings are covering a much larger swath of the city, and Northwest Philly is certainly one of those. So we do know this is a lot of territory, and surely we do not have folks on the line with us this evening from every corner of the Northwest. But this is the area we wanted to talk about. And again, just to kind of get ourselves oriented, zooming in just a little bit more. Again, North Broad runs straight, almost not quite due north, but north through North Philly. And then as you go into the Northwest, right, most of this boundary, this diagonal boundary right here, is Stanton Avenue. Of course, for those folks who are from the Northwest with us this evening, of course, very familiar with the avenue there. It does jet north just a little bit farther than that. North Broad here goes up to 66th Avenue, and it includes 1, 2, 3, 4 divisions that are north of Stanton Avenue. And you can see that within the council districts that are different colors, and I'll just pull back again for one more second. The light blue is the 9th, or turquoise is the 9th council district. Again, as Anthony mentioned, currently represented by Sherelle Parker. The 8th district, currently represented by Cindy Bass, and the 4th district, currently represented by Curtis Jones Jr. So those are the different colored districts. The divisions are these smaller building blocks. So you can see there are a bunch of them, and these are the same voting divisions we use on election day. Right, so each division has its own set of polling machines, its own set of poll workers, and actually more often than not, you'll usually have multiple divisions in the same church or rec center or school or wherever the physical polling place location is. But that's what these little purple boundaries are. And again, just looking at the couple large boundaries in the Northwest, you got North Broad here, but then this little section of 4 divisions, 1, 2, 3, 4, that goes across Denton Avenue and runs up to 66th Ave here. But the rest of the Northwest, between the 8th and the 9th, zooming back again, runs along Denton Avenue, which is this has been the boundary between the 8th and the 9th for a very long time. On the other side, between the 8th and the 4th, this, you got, I guess part of this boundary is following the creek and the park, right? That's why it's actually, it's not quite zigging and zagging, but it is curved, right? Because you got Fairmont Park here and Wissahickon Creek. This is where the Forbidden Drive is. You haven't been back there before. It is gorgeous. But this is following kind of the park boundary here. But then as you get back into a residential area, this very straight line is Wissahickon Avenue, which I understand is also been a boundary between the 4th and the 8th for some time too. So this is Wissahickon Avenue, goes all the way just past East Falls and to the other side of the boulevard where we're getting into North Philly. So, for the Northwest, again, like it's in a way a little bit less complicated in other parts of the city because you have right now these fairly major roads that have been boundaries for some time. You got the park, right, which is, as far as natural boundaries go, is a fairly intuitive boundary to have. I mean, folks only go back and forth across the park where there's a bridge, right? So this is the area of the city that we wanted to get some insight on, this evening. And we'll also note and stress that a lot of the value of these conversations and these meetings, because we are recording them, is so that folks from other parts of the city can get some insight into the Northwest here. And whether they're in City Hall or they're outside City Hall and they're doing a little bit of map drawing, they'll get a better sense of what's happening on the ground, who was on the ground in a given area of the city. So there's basically a 2-question prompt that we'd like to have a bit of a discussion around. And one is, and of course, to the extent that you're able to speak to this, kind of the community or communities that you're in, is there a shared sense of boundary? And if so, kind of what are those? Sometimes those boundaries are fairly clear and distinct and well known. Sometimes not so much so. So that's one thing, like kind of what community you're from and where are the boundaries, if there are some. And then the second piece of that is looking at the council district boundaries here. Do you have any opinions about the boundaries themselves, right? Do you like them? Do you not like them? Have you not just quite thought about it yet before? You maybe need a little bit more time to think on it. Would also note that we have an online survey that, again, we'll make sure everybody gets after the meeting, where if you do have a thought about this, you can weigh in after the fact. So this is the area, again, this part of the city. And I think at this point, I would just like to kind of open it up. And if anyone would like to kind of start the bidding and kind of weigh in and kind of get where you live and the community or neighborhood you're part of, and kind of where that is, that'd be a great place to start if someone could or wants to jump in.
I'm just gonna ask if you can pull that map back just a little bit more so that I can see the.
Yep.
Because although the 8th, the 4th, and the 9th does not technically represent where I'm from, I am very familiar with the area because a lot of the business that I do in this area.
Yeah, and Jonathan, you said you're in the 5th, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, sure. I mean, what part of the 5th are you in? Which neighborhood?
32nd Ward.
32nd Ward. And then, I mean, what's the kind of the neighborhood identity right there in the 32nd?
Strawberry Mansion. I'm where Air Street is.
Yeah. We'll just zoom in there for a second.
Which is Montgomery Avenue. 28th Montgomery.
Got it.
But that's all of the area that I definitely like. I'm from Diamond Street, but that's where my house is. Right.
And then, I mean, and just Strawberry Mansion is, I mean, almost entirely within. Well, I guess within the residential parts of Strawberry Mansion in the 5th, right? I guess there's there's one division up here that's residential and it's in the 4th right now. And of course the park, at least this part of the park on the east side of the river is in the 4th. But I mean, the vast majority of the straw man you mentioned is kept whole within the 5th district, looks like, right?
Yeah, I think that so it's funny that I was just talking to someone, I think it was Abu, in reference to how the park is sitting in the 4th, right? But everybody from this area, which is crazy because the 181 goes directly up to where, if I'm not mistaken, goes up to where the Bridge Avenue space is. And is that Lehigh Avenue? I'm trying to. Yep,
Yeah.
that is. That's
Yep.
Lehigh Avenue. So you see how that one residential area where the Dell East is, that little piece right there, it's like almost, I think that's where people get confused when they figure out who the council person is, because Daryl Clark is well known in the area and has been for a very long time. But when we were sitting in a meeting with the governor had came to Mander, which is one of the rec centers that I was overseeing. It was kind of funny to see how that part of the street is like Curtis Jones's district, along with the senators and etc. It shocks me because that park, everything in that field is actually is utilized by the people that's in that that area in the 5th. So I wasn't sure why it was broken down and wasn't a part of the 5th at the time, but I'm glad that I got the clear understanding once y'all guys were talking today.
Yeah, Jonathan, I mean, thanks for raising this. I mean, of course, like this is not within Northwest Philly, but I think it's instructive for all of us to take a look at here. And also, I appreciate the fact you mentioned the council members, but only in the context of like what is meant for folks knowing which district they're in. And I should have also stressed, and so that was also very helpful. I should have noted at the outset, just because like this has come up a little bit in a couple other meetings, that if we're going to mention a council member, it's only in the context of like kind of who knows who their council member is. This definitely is not the space for airing out concerns or issues or complaints with a given council member. Jonathan, you definitely were not doing that, but I just wanted to make sure that was clear for the rest of us as we go into this discussion. But so and Jonathan, so you're talking about this division right here where my cursor is.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. So look, I'm glad you raised this. I mean, this is where that would make some sense when you look at the map. These folks here, see themselves as part of North Philly here, and it's just one little division. Of course, Abu noted at the outset that there's some districts that have too few people in them, and the 4th district is one of them. So if this division were to be added to the 5th, that means the 4th would have to pick up even more people from another direction. But I mean, I'm sure for the folks who live here, and this is exactly what these meetings are for. If it makes sense for them on their end of things to be added to the 5th with their neighbors, that's a very important perspective. You mentioned the park as well. I mean, this is where whether it's the survey or if you have thoughts about this, again, this is technically outside the Northwest, but yeah, of course, folks in Strawberry Mansion, Brewerytown, elsewhere in North Philly go into this park all the time. You'll see that, and this is one of the tricks with redistricting these council districts is we're not able to just kind of drop the line wherever we want. That would probably be kind of helpful in many respects. But you can see the purple division line that surrounds the park here. This is a really geographically big division, right? It starts all the way down here at the Art Museum. It goes all the way past Lehigh and all the way up to Roosevelt Boulevard. And that's because no one lives here, right? Or not very many people live within this division. So, for this park division to be added to the 5th, it would stretch way up to Roosevelt Boulevard. I think some folks would certainly support that. Other folks may not, but that's why we're having these meetings. So yeah, Jonathan, is anything else you wanted to add about this particular area while we're here?
No, that's fine, because I really can't see the calendar that much. I mean, not the calendar, the map, but if you can pull back, and I know that this conversation is particularly for the Northwest section, correct?
Correct.
Okay. No, I think for me, I'm done.
Okay. All right. No,
as of now.
No, I appreciate that. No, that's really instructive stuff, even if not within the Northwest. So let me move back up here, and maybe I'll just I'll put this out to the group to the extent someone would have a comment on this. I mean, so Stinton Avenue has been a boundary for a very long time. At least from some of what we heard already, I mean, folks know about this boundary. They're very comfortable with it. Are there any communities that folks know of that kind of straddle Stinton Avenue anyway, though? I'm sure folks go back and forth all the time, right? But any community that folks can think of, whether it's a neighborhood or community group, ethnic group, or any sort that goes across Stinton?
Yeah, I mean, I have I said kind of a different question, but I do think people go back and forth. I think those communities are kind of similar, across from across Stinton. I mean, the houses might be a little bit bigger across Stinton Avenue, but other than that, I think the communities are pretty similar. I did want to take it back to that little the piece that you identified that goes above Stanton Avenue. Yeah, right there, the piece that goes above Stanton Avenue that what is this? Yeah, why that goes into why kind of like is that in the 8th Councilmatic as opposed to that being in the 9th Councilmatic with the rest? It seems kind of like a weird drawing.
Yeah.
I would have to pose the question. I would have to definitely say, I agree with Anthony on that part.
Yeah.
Because my pastor lives in that area and she always gets confused sometimes on who her council person is. And I had to let her know just based off of me looking at the map to who it was.
Yeah. So we're looking at this 1, 2, 3, 4, like 4, and maybe like a third of this division here.
Yeah.
So this extends north of Stinton Avenue, presumably because of the ward boundaries. And again, yes, the wards, that counts as another community, like a political community. But this is the 17th ward, runs up North Broad. It goes up to 66th Ave and then comes right down on Ogon's right here. So I presume that's why this was included in the 8th to keep the 17th ward whole within the 8th.
I mean, that does make, it makes sense, but I don't know if I can't claim to speak for the 17th ward because I'm not a part of the 17th ward, but just looking at it just from a constituent standpoint, it would probably just be easier. I mean, I'm just noting it would probably be easier for constituents to understand that if you live on one side of Stinton Avenue, this is your council person, and then if you live on the other side of Stinton Avenue, then that's your council person. I live a little bit further down on the other side near 2nd and Godfrey, and it's definitely a lot easier for people to understand like who our council person is because it's kind of like all set together. And like you said, I think our whole ward is in one councilmatic district, so it does make it easier. But I'm just saying from a constituent standpoint, if we were able to turn that blue some way, I think that'll be easier for people because then obviously it goes like on the other side of like Firm Rock and that part. And I'm sitting up here, I'm on the computer, so I'm like trying to move it. If you can move it down a little bit more, do you know if the whole 49th is in? I should probably know this, but I don't. But if the whole 49th is in the councilmatic, is in the 9th councilmatic? Because I'm just trying to figure out why is that part gray as opposed to like having more gray a little bit more down there, or or pulling from one end of the councilmatic district and putting it in that 17.
Right. Anthony, you looking at this portion down here?
Oh no, I was referring to but I was looking at that portion near the Albert Einstein Medical Center.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, a little bit lower near Windrum Avenue and Lindley Ave. But like why? Yeah. So I'm just thinking like if we took some of that and put it in and replaced it with that gray spot near that you said is in the 17th ward, it might just make it flow a little bit better. I'm just thinking of like population reinforcement.
Yeah. I hear what you're saying.
But that's kind of like my only thing. But I mean, in terms of like communities and that's from like the Northwest. I think me personally, I think like even though we're on the other side of Broad Street, I think my community, like the 61st Ward out in the area, does it does identify with like the West Oak Lane, East Oak Lane area. It is, as Abu mentioned kind of earlier, it is kind of weird that that one neighborhood where people will call Alany, is kind of split between two councilmatic districts. But like I said before, I do think my neighborhood and my community definitely kind of more identifies with that East Oak Lane, Mount Airy, West Oak Lane community at the same time. So that for me, that portion makes sense, but it doesn't kind of make sense to have two different councilmatic districts representing one neighborhood.
Yeah. Anthony, you're bringing up like a really good example of, I guess it's not just keeping individual communities whole, but keeping similar communities that work together, that identify with each other, keeping them together too. Yeah, that matters also. And it's in some of these districts, most of the communities kind of align that way. And in some districts, you have some very different communities within the same district, which causes some challenges. But yeah, those points are really well taken. And I think this is where you see different perspectives, and there can be a bit of tension here. There's surely the 17th ward as a political community would want to keep itself whole. But then, the folks, the residents in these 4 particular divisions, I'm sure it would make things kind of clear for them, right? If they were on the north side of Stenton Avenue, they were part of the 9th, along with all their neighbors. And then, I mean, you mentioned the southern part of Albany here. Not you mentioned. I mean, maybe Abu, could I kick it to you real quick to just kind of share a little bit of what we heard from this part of town?
Yeah, so I mean, me and Anthony, we get into arguments all the time because there are 2 wards that literally kind of dominate Albany, and that's the 61st and the 42nd. And we all know that the 61st, when it comes to voter turnout, outperforms the 42nd ward, which is okay. We still got a lot of work to do. But in this particular area, Bellman, when you see that, right there with Windrum Ave, that's the small portion. That's the 49th ward. That's right there at 5th and Somerville, the gas station, the bridge. So from one side to the bridge to 5th and Godfrey, that is Charles Parker. When you go under the bridge, from that bridge to the boulevard is Cindy Bass,
which is Fisher on back.
Yeah. So I guess the conversation there was, because for me, living in that community, I'm gonna be honest, it wouldn't be bad for Cindy Bass to come up and take the Albany area. If the 8th needed some, and then Sherrell can move up. I mean, then Councilmatic District 9 can move up to lower Northeast and get that diverse population that they say that they're not being represented by their current council person. So there can be an even trade there. But a lot of the community members from that particular area, identify with one council person, wanting that one council person to take over that whole entire corridor in that portion of Albany. But then also, you have to take into consideration too, and I got to figure out where the 7th district comes in at Albany, because I think the 7th district has a small portion of Albany, because I know the 42nd ward is split between Council District 9 and Council District 7.
Yeah, I think it's this little division right here. Yep.
So when you said that it would be, or that I guess input would be that the 8th councilmatic district would go more into Albany, where
that was just my personal. The recommendations we got is the fact that they want District 9 to literally take care of the whole entire Albany, from 5th and Godfrey to 5th and the Boulevard.
Okay, so the recommendation was for District 9 or District 8 to take care of those?
For District 9 to take this area. And the reason why we talk more about this area, because 10 years ago in 2011, this area wasn't there. This was Council District 9.
Oh, okay.
And then 10 years later, so Council District 9 literally picked up from North 11th Street to West Fisher.
Okay.
So they extended, 2 or a few divisions. So, and in that particular area, my girlfriend's parents live in that area, that Logan, right there near the Einstein Hospital. And we kind of know the development in there. It's that's really not an active community. So it doesn't, I'm not surprised that they got caught up in literally every 10 years shifting council people, because that's literally not a well-informed community or have a really good community, any type of community program out there.
No, there's a community organization out there, like with the church, that they pack the house sometime. But I think they probably do need to be kind of included in on this conversation a little bit more too, so that way they can, should have their thoughts be shared.
I have a question real quick. Ebu, when you said your girlfriend lives in that area, are you talking about like where the Einstein is, or
No, she lives at no. Her mom lives right there on North 13th Street.
13th and like what, Ruscombe?
13th and what is that? Yeah, 13th and was it Kamak?
All right, so if you are but from what block going back? You just like
you-
if you gave
you
me
don't know.
like Wyoming Avenue or
Right there, Wyoming Avenue, where the A+ is.
Wyoming Avenue.
Oh, here.
Yep.
Okay, so yeah, that area is definitely one of those areas that is less informed. I actually know a lot of people. My sister had a daycare that sat on Old York Road, and where Cook Middle School is, across from me on Old York Road and Loudoun. Me personally, I think that if you cut it off, if you can pull that back just a little bit, and I just think it will be better for people, but to understand that if you cut off at just say Ruscombe, because if you know the blocks, I think Ruscombe or is that Lindley? So Fisher on back, right? On one side between, Fisher from 5th on over. If that is all of that a part of the 8th, because if I'm not mistaken, it's broken up, right?
Yeah, the only portion that the 8th got in that area, Pat, can you use the only portion that the 8th got in that area we're talking about is these 4 or 5 divisions. This is the 8th literally comes from Lower Germantown, Chestnut Hill, all the way up to Albany, and it just has I think it's like 4 divisions right here. This is just all it has. 10 years ago, the 8th district only came up to North 11th Street, 11th and Ruscombe. Then 2011, they picked up 2 more. They picked up 3 more divisions.
I think it would be better if. So you see how Ruscombe goes complete all the way over. If District 9 took Ruscombe up, would probably be better for the people.
But then you also have to start getting into, and this is where politics come in, right? Because you have Albert Einstein Medical Center. When we talk about councilmanic redistricting, council people fight over medical institutions in their districts, right? So I don't think between, Councilwoman Parker, Council District 9 and Council District 8, I don't know if right now is in Councilmanic District 9, I don't know if someone wants to give up in hospital, medical center.
Right.
Yeah, because that, I don't think that's going to happen. If so, that's going
no. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that she should give up that area. I think they should stay in the 9th. I just think that those divisions where Fisher, if you can just move your little hand, that area right there. If you see where it cuts off on Ruscombe at, where that's 11th, going over to 2nd Street on Ruscombe, if the 9th, I'm not gonna call her by name, but if the 9th if they were to take that area, I think, and then everything below Ruscombe will be in the 8th. I think that would just make it easier. It's just so choppy. And what I noticed, even with like the state rep districts, when it's just so choppy, it really makes it confusing for the voter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And especially when y'all guys are splitting wards, it's really it really can be really confusing. But I think it would make it better if they can take everything on Ruscombe up. And if you can go back up to the top, and I remember that we were speaking a little bit about that. Well, y'all guys you see that little peak out. I think that if everybody on one side of Stanton is in the 8th, that little piece right there, it kind of like just bombarded into the 9th. I think Sherelle Parker should take it all, really. Or if that's, I think it makes it better for because that's going to split up. That's not one ward, that little space right there. It's breaking up the ward. I think that if they take it from Stanton, just knowing that if you live on one side of Stanton, you know that you vote at, just say Martin Luther King, just say this to police, right? Or LaSalle or Central. Like, I just think that that should be a part of the 9th, and then it'll make it a little bit better than what it looks like. I think it's really confusing when the councilmatic districts are so choppy.
Yeah. This is and this is we're also starting to see a little bit where things coming. I mean, this low extension surely is there because it's the top of the 17th ward. I'm sure that the most residents here, it is confusing for them. It would make sense for this neighborhood, this community to be added to the 9th with the rest of their neighbors. Down here, like y'all were talking about, some number of these divisions there was talk about, because not just like the Olney neighborhood and community, but the 5th district business, the 5th Street business corridor, right, is split between going from the 7th across the boulevard to the 8th and then to the 9th. Like, that makes things confusing as well. One of the challenges and the tensions will be in these changes, how much you can change on one side of the district and then may force changes on the other. So for example, the 8th district is short about 2,000 people right now, for example. So if there's a community desire for some amount of this area to be added to the 9th, the 8th district will then have to pick up even more divisions from another direction, right? And there are only so many different ways that the 8th district can go. Think seems pretty unlikely it's going to jump across Wissing Avenue and the park and go into the 4th. It's adjacent to Allegheny West, it's adjacent to Honey Park. But then, the folks who live here in these areas, the folks who live in Honey Park, folks who live in Allegheny West, so they'll certainly have an opinion as well. So, I just kind of point that out because this is where it gets challenging, because the legitimate community perspectives may actually kind of run into each other and what they want to see. So, this is all points very well taken. But other so I guess again, did anyone have a thought about communities that straddle Stanton Avenue? We always, from what we sensed, most folks are very familiar with this boundary. They feel good about it. But just any other thoughts on this particular side, and then maybe we'll move over to the 4th and the 8th. Then welcome, Miss Linda. I saw you just joined us. You're on mute.
I was on another Zoom. That's my life. You go from one to the other. So I just wanted to make sure I got on this one. So just wanted to say hello. Thank you. I missed a good amount of it.
No, all good. Okay. Okay. Well, all very good. Again, our sense of things from everything we've heard, folks, seem to feel pretty good about the Stanton Avenue boundary. It's been there for a long time. And not only I think that the neighborhoods and communities are kept whole on one side or the other, and with similar communities that for the most part identify with each other, work across neighborhoods, but the ward boundaries follow Stanton Avenue as well, which of course politically makes things a little bit more straightforward or easy.
Hey, Pat,
yeah.
Before we jump into those wards, those council districts, I wanted to offer the opportunity, and I don't know if maybe Josh could talk about it or not, but what is there any type of insight you can tell us of what council is thinking about council redistricting, especially Councilman Jones, or understanding that there's only so many places you can pull and shift population from. Is there anything that you can kind of share with us? Because I know that council has kind of been keeping this process, to the chest. If he just,
Yeah, I can only speak for our district. I may or may not have seen the maps to know where we're going to be pulling population from. And it's likely not going to be from the Northwest because there's obviously that natural barrier between the 4th and the 8th district. But as noted earlier in the presentation, the 4th district is the least populated of the 10 districts, and we will have to find the most constituents to even out the districts. And today was the last day of council for the year, and obviously no maps were introduced. So it's a very good bet that when council reconvenes on January 20th, that the maps will probably be introduced then. It may be maybe a week later. But as we know, they have to be done by February or else council members don't get paid, and that's a pretty good motivation to get it done pretty quickly. Yeah, I can't speak for the rest of the 9 districts, but I can certainly speak for our district to know, have a good idea of where we're going to draw population from.
Well, isn't the 5th district the main district that needs to, I don't want to say get rid of, but has a larger amount of population where they could give their numbers to the 4th as well as the 8th, and seemingly they are adjacent to, it's adjacent to both of those districts. Is that some, well, I know it's not our call anyhow, but isn't that something that could be discussed? Because the 5th has too many. We saw that, right? That's one of the ones that has to get rid of their decreased population.
Can I look at that again real quick? So I can speak. I can say that I can probably have to speak from the 5th. I can most doubt it that if we were residents, would we want to, and I'm gonna use that Strawberry Mansion area, right? Would we really want to go into the 4th? And I just think, and maybe for me, I think it'd be a great idea, right? But those residents, especially in that area, for the most part, if I can you zoom up on that for me? And that little chunk right there.
So this division again, Jonathan?
Yeah, that area for the most part are homeowners who have been a part of that area and have known that council member for a very long time, and probably subject to how he likes to run his district or what he brings to the area.
Is that older section of the 5th district that you're talking about? Is that where the, I can't think of that particular neighborhood group that's there?
Yeah, so that's that lower, so that's right where the cemetery is. And that's where all the houses are. So it's not like, and I do know that a little bit of that, where that little choppy part is. And I think the little choppy part is where like the PHA home is. And that's, if I'm not mistaken, that entire division is where the PHA home is, because I think that's where that development is. But everything on the opposite side of 33rd Street, if I'm not mistaken, is all homeowners.
Is that Yorktown? That's not Yorktown, is it?
No, Yorktown is on the other side. So Temple is
okay.
closer. Yep. Yeah, no. And even that part, right? That's definitely a homeowner base as well.
Well, they're gonna have to do something. They got to get the numbers from somewhere. And as we've always said with redistricting, everybody's never happy. Everybody can't be happy, I should say.
And I see the number. What was the numbers for the 8th again? Even though it's not our call, but if we had to make,
I'm just talking, believe me.
Right? No. I understand. If the bottom of the 8th, like where the 4th, 5th, and 8th are like close. Now, can you zoom up? Never mind, I can zoom up in a little bit. If I'm thinking right, I wouldn't see why the 4th couldn't pick up in that area. Because I can guarantee you that 20th Street area, Fox Street, I can give you the confuse. Like I think they probably would believe that Curtis Jones is probably already their council person, until they get to the man.
Yeah.
And is that
it's good to have the discussions, especially to have community people actually look at actual boundaries and how that might affect them. So hopefully we can hear that information with the.
And I'll be
contact.
honest, the people that are not really a part of the political process or just vote just because it's their right and they want to vote, they don't even know the boundaries, right? They don't know the boundaries of the wards or the boundaries of their councilmanic districts, which I think is why these meetings are very important and why it should definitely have a little more attention. Because they need to be informed, because what happens is, and I see it all the time on election day, is people get to polling places and that don't even be their polling place because they don't know the boundaries. So now they have to drive to a whole other space.
Yeah. Well, Jonathan, maybe that's an excellent point to maybe kind of, round things out, that, a big piece of this and the need for this project is so that folks, have specific about these district boundaries, that they can, bring those to the council member and make those known sooner rather than later. And then, of course, like Josh mentioned, like a redistricting plan will have to be released sometime very soon, in January. And like as soon as that map drops, folks can take a quick look and provide feedback on it then too. But a lot of this is just good solid community education engagement, because we got this mapping process. We may have to make much more dramatic changes across the city 10 years from now, depending on how the city grows and at what pace. We may not be able to keep the districts quite similar the way they probably will be this time around. So yeah, those points are really well taken. We're coming up close to time. Any other final thoughts, especially on the northwest part of the city, which we're focusing on this evening? Again, we know that these are very long, pretty straight boundaries, been the same for a long time. Probably not too controversial, but just wanted to give folks one final chance there. Okay. All right. Well, cool. We'll take the map down there. Thank you so much for joining us. This was really instructive, but we're going to make sure after the fact that this video will become available online. We'll send you some information afterwards. Maybe if I could kick it to you, any other kind of final thoughts you might want to add before we wrap up?
We did our sessions, we did our part. Now it's time to you to go into your communities, take what we've taught you and educate person by person, block by block, organization by organization. This is not the last time you're going to see us. We are in the process of putting, the next steps in January and February. I am literally pushing Pat to make the next, it's probably not going to be 12 community input sessions in January and February, but whatever we do, we need to make it more of a hybrid of in-person and virtual, so that we can get more voices at the table. Like I said, this is our 8th community input sessions. When we first started, I'm like, oh, this is going to be a walk in the park. It is not. Just like Linda said, you cannot make everybody happy. Our council people, have one way of doing things, and getting this information, a lot of people are not happy. Because once we take this information and we look at all the videos by the end of this year, and we figure out our next steps, we're taking all this and sending it to council. And then we're going to do some mobilization around this stuff, to let council know that this is not in vain. So please look out for an email with the copy of this video, email of next steps, and also you'll get an email attached with the survey, so that you guys can fill the survey out, but also go into the maps and, like I said, go to, work with the other organizations and create a map. If you are part of organizations, create your own map, and send it to your council person and send it to us so that we can, send it as well. The more feedback and that council get is better. We've just heard it once again, why this is important. Council is already talking about their districts. They've already talking about where they want to pull population from. Giving them this, putting mobilization behind it, everyone is not going to like us, but we're doing the best that we can to make sure that this process is transparent. So I'm glad to be working with my colleague, Pat Christmas, to work with all of you. And I just look forward to doing more work as we come back from our Christmas break.
First, I want to say thank you for both of you guys for putting on this meeting. I really appreciate it. Definitely informed me And although I am a part of the political process and, know what's going on a little bit, this definitely informed me on a bigger scale. I'm just going to ask if y'all guys can send me the maps with the breakdowns where like Broad Street is, so I can see the actual streets. Hopefully I can be able to go to the people that I do know and try to let them know that what's going on. And then if y'all guys can, Boo, if you can just keep me informed with your meetings that y'all guys have coming up within the new year, then I'll make it my priority to make sure that I get it out to as many people as possible.
Thank you. Pat.
All right. All sounds good. Hey, thank you again so much for joining us, everybody. Have a wonderful evening, and we will be in touch.
Thank
Happy
you.
holidays, everyone. Happy
Happy
holidays.
Holidays.